Hi, this is Mark with Rummel Benefits Group, and today I'm going to give you a brief tutorial on using Medicare.gov to evaluate your prescription drug coverage options.
Okay, so I'm just going to go to Medicare.gov. This is a public website. It's not private access or anything special that we have access to as an agent. It's something that you can do on your own. If you do have a login for a My Medicare.gov account, you can log in. If you don't have one, I would suggest you create it. It can make things a lot easier when you have claims or other issues that you want to look at, or at renewal, you can pull your medications over from what you've filled recently to help in evaluating your coverage. So if you don't have a login, again, you can go to mymedicare.gov, or you can go to medicare.gov and just hit login. It'll explain how to create an account. I'm just going to use an example version here, so I'm not going to log in, but I'll just go to find plans now. And once again, you could log in or create an account, or in my case, I'm going to continue without logging in. You do have the ability to look at Medicare Advantage or prescription drug plans or Medigap policies. You can toggle between the different options once you get in there, but I'm just going to start with prescription drug coverage for now and plug in my zip code. Choose Saginaw County. If you receive help with costs from one of these programs, you can choose that option. You would be notified from CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, if that is the case. I'm just going to choose I don't get help from any of these programs and select next. I do want to look at drug costs when you compare plans. And I'm just going to put in a couple examples. So I'm going to start with just a couple common medications. We'll go with Lipitor. One thing that you will see here is if you plug in a brand name medication, the system will tell you. So Lipitor is the brand name. There is a low cost generic version available called atorvastatin. You can choose your generic or brand name. Obviously, I am not a doctor or a pharmacist, but a lot of times the generic medications can be significantly cheaper if your body agrees with it, and your doctor or provider can switch you over. That is usually a good thing in terms of your out-of-pocket cost anyway. So I'm going to add the generic, and Medicare.gov will give you kind of the baseline dosage by default. You do have the ability to change that, but I'm just going to leave it at the 40 milligrams. And let's just say that I take this once daily. You could switch to a 90-day supply or an annual supply if it's something that you take infrequently. So in this case, I'm actually going to go to 90 every 3 months, which would be my once a day with a 90-day supply. I'm going to add that to my drug list, and let's just put another one here for fun. How about simvastatin, 20 milligrams. And again, I'm going to do 90 every 3 months for that 90-day supply. Once I'm done adding medications, I'll select done adding drugs. And now you can choose pharmacies. So every plan has their own drug formulary, which we'll get into in a moment, but that's a list of covered drugs, and that formulary tells you what tier your medication would fall into. But every plan also has their own different relationship with the pharmacy networks. So your costs can vary depending on which pharmacy you choose. I'm going to add a couple of the local ones here just in my area to give us some options. You can add up to 5. And now what will happen is it will pull up all the prescription drug plans available in my area code, or in my zip code, excuse me. So there are 23 different prescription drug plans available in Saginaw County. The tool will automatically sort the plans by the lowest combined out-of-pocket cost for medications and premium. And it will do that from whatever point you are in the year. So today happens to be June 17th. This is going to evaluate as if I were enrolling in coverage for July 1st through December 31st. So if you're looking at this at the beginning of the year, it may look different halfway through because maybe there's a deductible, maybe there's other changes. But just to give you an example, there are 23 plans available. You can kind of see the plans. I can't really go into specific about plan information with this being an educational video, but you can scroll down and kind of see what's available in your area and make a determination of which plan looks like the best fit. So without going into detail, I'm just going to take a look at the basic information available here, but this particular plan would have a $7.50 per month premium, and the medications would be $12 would be my out-of-pocket costs through the end of the year. So depending on what tier your medications fall into, you may have a deductible. As I mentioned with the pharmacy networks, there are different levels of coverage or different levels of networks that are available. So Kroger, CVS, Meijer, mail order would fall into a preferred in-network pharmacy under this particular plan. Rite Aid would be standard. There are other pharmacies that would be considered out of network. And so kind of obviously, as the name implies, preferred would be usually give you the lowest cost. Standard would be next, and then out of network obviously would be one that you'd probably want to avoid. You can see how the cost would change whether you're seeing or using a preferred in-network versus standard in-network pharmacy for these particular medications. I'm going to go down specifically to these medications so you can see the retail costs. This would basically be what you would pay without insurance, your cost before deductible, your cost after deductible, your cost in the coverage gap, and your cost after the coverage gap. I'll cover the coverage gap in a moment, but for right now, I'm going to just scroll down and look at drug coverage. So here are the tiers that I mentioned. With Medicare, it's a 5-tier drug system. Tier 1 is your preferred generics. These are typically your low cost, very common medications. Tier 2 are non-preferred generics. Tier 3 are preferred brand name. Tier 4 non-preferred brand name. Tier 5 specialty drugs. You can see what your cost would be in this initial coverage phase. Basically what that means is after your deductible has been met, if applicable, this is what you would pay on a monthly basis for each of these medications. If you were in the coverage gap, you would go to 25% of the retail cost of the medication. Once you exit the coverage gap, you would pay a copay or 5% co-insurance, the greater of those two, depending on what tier your medication falls into. Here I can see the tiers, both are tier 1 preferred generics, and then I can see my drug list, which can be helpful if you, or maybe you're going to your doctor's office or you wanted to give access to a family member or someone who's helping you with your care. You can print a list of your medications so that they can kind of see what's going on. Star ratings are an important part of evaluating plans. This particular plan, again, is a 3.5-star plan out of 5. There are no 5-star drug plans available in Michigan at the moment. And then what I could do, so maybe I'm new to Medicare and I'm evaluating between Medigap with a prescription drug plan or looking at Medicare Advantage. I don't have to re-enter all my information. I can just come back over here and select the Medicare Advantage plans. So you can see there are 52 Medicare Advantage plans available in Saginaw County. Again, without going too much detail into plan specifics, you can kind of see a list of the plans. They are sorted again by lowest anticipated drug and premium costs based upon the medications that I chose and the pharmacies that I've entered. So you'll see a number of plan options come up that are covering those generic medications at no cost. Not a perfect evaluation of which plan you should choose. There's a lot of factors, obviously, that would go into this beyond just your medication costs, but it gives you a pretty good idea of what might be a good fit for you. And then you can check whether your doctors or providers accept that plan and other factors that are important to you in making a coverage decision. A couple other things worth noting. I'm going to flip here to GoodRx. You may be familiar or have seen commercials or advertisements about this. If your medications are not well covered by your drug plan, you do have some other options. So I'm going to plug in Lipitor. Actually, it's right here. So I'm just going to give you an example here. If I were taking the brand name Lipitor, maybe my body doesn't agree with the generic version and I have to take the brand name. You can choose which medication you're taking. So if there was a Walgreens nearby, you could be paying $128 for that medication. But if you use this GoodRx coupon, you might only pay $21. So there's a pretty big variation in cost, both the retail cost from the pharmacy and also what coupons are available. It's a good option, again, if your drug plan does not cover your medication very well. One downside of GoodRx is anything that you pay through these GoodRx coupons, you would actually not be running it through your insurance. So if you were maybe paying towards a deductible and instead you use a GoodRx coupon, that wouldn't count towards your deductible. It's one or the other. Either get it cheaper through GoodRx or run it through your drug plan, maybe have that knockoff part of your deductible that you're responsible for each year. If GoodRx doesn't work for you, there's another option here called Cost Plus Drugs. This is a Mark Cuban company. If you're familiar with Mark Cuban from Shark Tank and other things that he's part of, you can look for medications. I'm just going to go to a list of all medications and an example here. So this is a pretty extreme example, but it happens to be the first alphabetically. This medication is a retail cost of over $1,000. The cost through this website, Cost Plus Drugs, is $57.60 per month. So we have seen a number of clients who've been able to get much cheaper medications through these websites. We've actually used this in my own household. So just another tip for you if your Medicare plan does not cover your medications particularly well. A quick note on the coverage gap or donut hole. So this is Medicare.gov. Once again, I'm on the costs in the coverage gap page. Medicare drug plans will have a coverage gap or donut hole, meaning there's a temporary limit on what they will pay for your medications. Not everyone will enter the gap, but if the retail cost of your medications would reach $4,430, and this is for 2022 plan information, then you would reach that coverage gap. So in some cases, maybe you were used to paying a copay for your medication, and all of a sudden that lower copay goes away, and now you are in the coverage gap where you would have to pay 25% of the cost of the medication until you exit the coverage gap, at which point you get some relief. You go back down to the 5% of the cost of the medication. You would exit the coverage gap and enter this catastrophic phase of coverage once the combined retail cost of your medications has reached $7,050 for 2022. There's really no additional insurance coverage that you can purchase to help in the coverage gap. It's just something that you'll have to try to budget for and plan around and talk with your doctor or pharmacist about maybe alternative treatments that can help reduce your costs.
Thanks for joining me. Hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, you can give me a call or email. My contact information is on the screen.